took my entire nest egg that I made in real estate, every dollar that I had, and I sent it over to a freelance company in Indiana, overpaid for probably the worst piece of shit product. Can we swear, by the way?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool. The worst piece of shit product you could have ever imagined. I mean, this thing would never have scaled past 50 users, right? Like, our engineers joke about it all the time now that, like, I paid $100 grand for the biggest piece of crap in the world. We had to throw out the entire thing, everything, right? Like, we threw out all the new code, all the code, every piece of it.
It's your boy, new day, new goals, let's own it. So check it out, it's episode 14 of Leaders Create Leaders, and today we're gonna be meeting up with the founder of Tablelist. His name is Julian Jung, and honestly, Julian, when I first met him, it was probably about 3 years ago, and he came in and he pitched me this idea and wanted me to be his mentor and advisor. And back then, I realized that, you know, Julian just had this idea, and he was hungry, as most entrepreneurs are when they first start out, but there was something a little different about him. And you know, his idea, Tablelist, was all about what if you wanted to go out to the nightclub or you wanted to go to an event, and what if with the click of a button on an app you were able to pre-book your table or pre-book this event so that when you showed up, you can go right to the front of the line, you don't have to worry about a guest list, you don't know about who you know, you were able to get right in and everything's waiting there for you. Well, Julian went from someone who was fearful from talking to people and now got people to believe in him and has raised millions of dollars. He's actually got the platform now generating over $300 million in transactions over the past 3 years, got over 150,000 users, and is in 9 different countries. He's now the #1 online, real-time reservation platform and venue management system in the world. So we're gonna get into how did he do this? And then, more importantly, how did he actually go from being fearful from talking to people to becoming someone who was able to sell this dream and get people to believe in him and now take this company to a whole new level? Talk to me about the Julian before he really dove into becoming an entrepreneur.
Yep. Dude, you're not going to even believe this story. But when I was first getting into it, I used to be a crazy, crazy introvert. I couldn't talk to anybody for more than like 5 minutes without getting all nervous. And like, I just wasn't a business person, right? Like, my parents were both scientists.
Yeah.
I never in my life dreamed that I would go into the business world. And then all of a sudden, one day, I realized that, like, if I wanted to do all the things that all my other friends were doing, and you know, all the success that these guys were having, was that I had to change my ways. And so, high school year, I got a job as a door-to-door salesperson. I'm not even joking you. I had like $500 to my name, and I would put on this suit that was way too big for me. And I knew I had to overcome my fear of talking to people, right? Like, all of business is just meeting good people and having that interaction. So I would go knock on every single door, and I would have these spa packages, like these pamphlets in my hand. This is like pre-Groupon days, man. And I'd knock on the door and I'd walk right up, and I mean, I've said the pitch so many times I even know it by heart. I'd walk up and I'd be like, "Excuse me, sir." And you'd be like, "Whoa, like, who the hell is this person coming up to me?" I'd be like, "Hi, my name is Julian. I'm here on behalf of 10 Spa. We got voted one of the best day spas in the area. So they sent me out to give the next 10 people that I talk to 90% off spa packages." Now, this is a dumb question, but I know that you or somebody in your life could go for a little pampering. And no joke, they would send me out and I would have to talk to 250 people every single day in order to sell 10 of these things. And this was like Square, so people were giving me their credit cards, and we were taking imprints, they were giving me cash, and they get this coupon book.
Yeah.
And every single day when you go to the office, they would basically preach to you and say that, you know, you would have to get rejected 240 times a day before you'd be able to sell 10 of these. And at the end of the day, even if you were lucky to sell 10, you'd walk home with $100, and you'd literally work from 7 in the morning till 9 at night. You'd sweat through your entire suit But after that, like, you are fearless. You walk up to anybody, you talk to anybody about anything, and that was like a huge, huge step, right?
Well, so what's next? You're in college.
Yep.
Did you end up graduating? What did you end up? What was that first move you made for your career?
Sure. So I almost dropped out of school many times. My mother would have killed me if I did it. So I pretty much just got my degree for her, right?
Right. I think
so
a lot of millennials end up going through that.
Oh my God.
If you would go back, would you have dropped out? Like, do you think it was the right move? Or?
So the thing is, like, the connections that I made in college were probably like invaluable, right? Like the people that I met, and so I think it was, for me particularly, less about sort of the learning and going to the classes. It was just about the people that I would be with every single day, right? Like some of my biggest investors, mentors, business partners all came from people that I met at school, right?
Sweet.
So I don't think I'd ever change it because of that.
Yeah.
But again, like maybe the class side of it and the education side of it, I think could be tweaked a little bit, right?
Cool.
So 19, I got into real estate, and this was when things really started to take off, right? So I started working with college students doing $500, $1,000 a month apartments. And the way that it works as a broker is you get 50% of the monthly commission. So I'd close a $500 deal and I'd walk home with like a $250 check, right? And then one day I got really lucky. I saw the same kid going to the gym at this really awkward hour. And we started talking, started hanging out. And we started talking about what we did. And I told him that I was a broker, and he said, "Oh, I'm looking for a place." And I said, "Great, well, how can I help?" And he goes, "I'm looking for something between 4 to 6. Like, let me know if you have anything."
Right.
So I thought this kid meant $400 to $600 a month, right? So I'm sending him listings, and you know, this guy, he literally texts me the moment that I sent him all the listings. He's like, "Really funny. Like, just show me something at the Ritz of the W. You know, I meant 4,000 to 6,000 a month, one bed." And for me, like at the time, I'm like, I've never seen money thrown around like that, right? Like I was living in like a $600 a month apartment at the time on college campus. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, like I'll do my best. And I had no idea what to do, right? So I called my guy, and I'm trying to find a bunch of places to show him. We look at 2 buildings, one at the Ritz and one at the W. And I'll never forget this. Driving around in my car, he looks at the first one, this is fine, looks at the second one, he goes, "I'll take it," right on the spot. 30 minutes, $5,250, $5,250 per month apartment in the W, and that was a $2,600 commission check that I made right then on the spot, right? Like, 19-year-old kid, I had a check like that. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. I'm only working with kids like you from now on, right? And so Boston has like a very, very big international student presence. So I latched on, right? Like, we became best friends. He started actually bringing me to a lot of the different nightclubs and lounges and introducing me to all of his friends from all around the world. And I sort of became known as the broker for all the international students, right? And what was great about it was that none of the other brokers could touch these kids because they were my friends on campus. I went to class with them every day, right? I hung out with them right after like dining halls and stuff like that, right? And so as I started working with them closer, that just became my thing. And every single time we would go to the different nightclubs and bottle parades came out, dude, that was my cue to go and interact with the next group. Yeah. And so I did that for a while. I realized that over time that, you know, I was becoming a better salesperson, but it really wasn't teaching me like the hard business skills that I wanted, right? Like, that was sort of like my next thing where, okay, I want to get better at numbers. I want to get better at, you know, doing investment properties, right? Like, I don't want to just be able to sell somebody and just be like a buddy so you'll buy from me type of deal. So senior year, we started getting a little bit more sophisticated. We started syndicating their family monies from overseas, and we would buy up portfolios of properties. And this was back in like 2011, 2012. So this was like after the crash. And so everything that we were buying, anywhere between 6 units, 10 units, up to 20 units, I mean, we were picking these things up, and it was like the Midas touch, man. Like, if I look back, we would have just bought everything we possibly could have gotten our hands on back in the day. And so that was it, the real estate game. So from the selling spa packages to customer support to doing the real estate thing. And that was the path, man. I was gonna do that for the rest of my life.
What was the moment that you decided to pivot now away from, that's all working for you, you're making money with real estate. Like, how did now you transition, you know, from being in real estate to actually becoming an entrepreneur and now founding your first company, Tablelist? And what, you know, characteristics did you take from all of your past, from doing real estate and all that sales stuff, to now, you know, starting to build your own company?
Of course. So, God, it was probably one of the toughest decisions I've ever made in my whole entire life, right? So senior year, I closed close to 30 million in investment properties. This is while doing class full time, another $500,000 in rentals. And then so I had a nice little nest egg set aside. And the catalyst of Tablelist was while I was traveling abroad, right? So all of a sudden now I'm out of my element. I have no connections in the nightlife scene. We're trying to go out. First of all, it's a nightmare to figure out where to go. Then once we figure out where to go, they're trying to rip us off because, you know, we don't speak the language. They know we're tourists, right? Yeah. I'm just like, why is this so complicated, right? Like back home, you know, I can text somebody. It's an easy way to just get into the venues. All I want to do is just get a table and not have to deal with, you know, all of these sort of issues. And then started to think about it, and it was like, holy crap, like there's probably 99, I was spoiled, right? I was spoiled by my clients because they would take me out all the time, and like they showed me a life that I'd never seen before. But then thinking back to it, I was like, wow, nightlife in general, probably 99% of people have an awful experience with it every single time because you're waiting in line, you don't know if you're gonna get in, you don't know how much it's gonna cost, it's not transparent at all. Yeah. And so I decided to fix the problem. And I came back stateside, and I was basically like, what am I gonna do with my book of real estate clients, right? Like, I was probably at an all-time high then. Like, all the tech industries were really starting to boom at the time as well, so I was literally looking at the two, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to choose, right? And at the time, I started doing the two side by side. Yeah. But real estate, the money was just always better, right? Like, it was bigger deals, like we were doing massive buildings, and I knew that if I always had real estate that I would never devote my heart to Tablelist. And I truly believed at the time that if anyone was going to solve the issue, it was me, and it was right then and there, but I would have to give up everything that I knew.
Oh man, this is intense, you know why? Because I meet so many entrepreneurs that are 1 foot in, 1 foot, like trying to do two things at once, right? Like don't really know how to go all in. And most of them don't even have a money-making opportunity coming in. Like they're just like, you know, trying to get by, and they maybe have another hobby, like a side gig kind of. Sure. You know, but they have their passion for this idea, and so many of them are like trying to manage 2 or even 3 projects at once, trying to figure out which one's gonna work. What would you say to them? Because here you are in this moment, you actually have a big decision, right? You're making money, you're like I said, you're at the peak. Right. Yet you know you have something special. You truly believe in this idea. Yeah. Which is even, I think, a much harder decision. What would you say to the entrepreneurs out there that are trying to like, they don't know?
Sure, of course, man. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's mindset, right? Like, you gotta always believe that whatever your heart, whatever your gut tells you, you're going to end up making the right decision. As long as your heart is behind it and your passion is behind it, you cannot go wrong. Like that's the thing. It's so simple and matter of fact, right? Because for me, real estate was just about the money, and I knew that. It was only about the money and the reason why I stuck around there. But then for this was where I was up late at night and I was working on this into the late hours. Yeah. And when you're doing something like that with something that makes you nothing, you know that it's something special, right? And so that's when you just have to take the plunge, right? You just have to take the plunge and accept, hey, you know, it might completely fail, you might lose everything on it. Yeah. And as long as you accept complete failure, what's the worst that can happen?
So what I love about entrepreneurship is when I hear about someone who absolutely just completely is crazy to believe in their idea, even when nobody else does. And you know, we all go through this as entrepreneurs. People think you're crazy, they'll tell you, you better quit, give up, they'll doubt. But you just believe in your heart that this is something that you need to do. You have that inner burning desire that we go through as entrepreneurs, and I love that. So we're gonna get into how Julian went all in, but even though he thought that it potentially could fail, how he really pushed it forward. And we're gonna go into how he spent $100,000, all of his personal savings, to build his beta product, that first app to test out.
Dude, so it was tough. I mean, I wasn't a tech guy, right? Yeah. I had no tech background, right? Yeah. Like I didn't know a thing about engineering. And all of a sudden, I'm making the decision to leave everything that I know to start a technology business, right? Yeah. People thought I was insane. People thought I was just getting onto the whole app hype bandwagon, right? Which, sure, I mean, that's easily accepted, right? Like they said the same thing when I was getting into the real estate game. They're like, everyone is a real estate agent, right? Like I had the entrepreneurship club president tell me, dude, you shouldn't do this, everyone's a real estate agent, right? But again, it boils back to the fact that if you have sort of that core passion and belief in something, and you want to truly dedicate your heart to it, like you'll figure out a way all the time, right? So I took my entire nest egg that I made in real estate, every dollar that I had, and I sent it over to a freelance company in Indiana, overpaid for probably the worst piece of shit product. Can we swear, by the way?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool. The worst piece of shit product you could have ever imagined. I mean, this thing would never have scaled past 50 users, right? Like, our engineers joke about it all the time now that, like, I paid $100 grand for the biggest piece of crap in the world. We had to throw out the entire thing, everything, right? Like, we threw out all the new code, all the code, every piece of it. But what that allowed me to do, right?
Yeah.
And granted, I was staring back at that being like, I literally have not a penny to my name right now, right?
But it's amazing to this is that you didn't give up. I love that. I love that.
Dude, I put everything in it, right? I didn't have a penny to my name afterwards. But what that allowed me to do was I could now shop the vision and shop the idea to find like the next engineering team that would then get behind it, right?
So it was at least good enough to kind of get the, you know, be able to tell the story.
Exactly. Exactly, and that's the key, right? Like, that was a huge learning lesson, right? Yeah. But it was also the stepping stone to pass that vision that I had in my brain and help other people truly visualize it.
Right.
Right, and so that's where we came up with the idea of Tablelist, and at the time when we started this thing, this was just going to be a last-minute VIP table inventory site. Like literally a hotel tonight, but for nightclub tables. Like if a nightclub has a bathroom table, you're gonna get that at some sort of a discounted price, right?
Like, what was your business plan? What was the first next step that you took to actually get awareness on the app, to get people, to help get users on the app?
Sure.
Right? Like, how did you go about all that?
Dude, so that went back to my training of my spa days, man. Talk to 240 people, 250 people, and 240 people are gonna reject you, right?
Yep.
And so I took this thing and I knocked on investors' doors, I knocked on venues' doors, I knocked on just people that I knew, and I preached the word. I told everybody about this thing.
You definitely did. You called me.
Hey, I called you. I cold called you, right? So I called everybody, man.
Yeah. You know what? He went and talked to everyone pitching the idea of Tablelist, his friends, potential investors, even strangers. And when you're first getting that idea going, and you want to get people to believe in you, you literally have to go to like every extent in order to get people to learn about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you know what? He didn't know if he was going to be able to get someone to believe in him. In fact, he literally had only enough money left in the bank for 1 week. But what happens next is pretty exciting.
Right? I literally sold my book of real estate clients, so I didn't even have an out to go back to.
Yeah.
Right? And then with this thing, it was like, I almost was running out of cash, right? I had this product that nobody was adopting, and I knew that I had to fundraise, right? And everybody was giving me no's. Like, there wasn't a single VC that would take me seriously. There was like, it's nightlife, it's alcohol related, no way, right? Like, everybody. And so at that time, I mean, that's when the true test starts to happen, right? Woo! That's when you say, okay, like, am I going to accept the fact that I'm just going to be eating like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and staying on my friends' couches and still pushing this thing and grinding this out until I get that yes that I need? Or am I going to call it quits and, you know, take a job or something like that, right? Or go back to what I originally had.
Yeah.
And so again, like, you know, once you, and I think it's good, like sort of once you starve yourself a little bit and you get into that mentality of like, if I don't do this, I'm literally, it's like, I can't accept failure as an option.
Yeah. You
eventually get to the yes. Yeah. It's just a matter of time. It takes time, but no matter what, you will always fucking get there if you just keep at it.
So then how did it feel when you finally got the first person to believe in you?
Oh man, it was like...
Take me through that moment.
Yeah, so the first investor, so let's talk about like our first real investor. This guy holds a really special place in my heart. His name is Jason. He's an absolute monster here in New York City.
Yeah.
And the first time that I was going to pitch him, you know, my business partner Kyle has said that, hey, he might be interested in a $25,000 check, right? And you know, at the time we needed to raise $1 million. So I'm so nervous, right? I just spent all of my time putting this deck together. We have maybe a week's worth of runway left in the bank account, right? Like, we're going under if we don't push some money into this thing. And I sit down with him and we're rushing through the whole, he's rushing me through the whole entire deck. I'm like, this guy has zero interest. Close my computer down, he goes, you know, how much is left? And I'm looking at him and I'm being like, oh, we just started. And he goes, I'll take it. I'll take the whole thing.
Get out.
And I had never had like that emotion run through me before. I think I literally stared at him for 30 seconds, didn't say a word. My jaw was on the table. I'm looking at my business partner, her jaw is on the table, and we don't say anything. I mean, I have never ever seen this before, right? Like, this is.
You were in shock. You didn't even believe it was true.
In shock. It was the entire round right then and there, and I was so floored. I just had to get out of there because I didn't even know what to do with like my body and my arms. Like I was like, it was awkward. It's weird. Yeah. So we get to the elevator and we are jumping up and down the elevator, like freaking out. Like this is like, holy crap, we did it. Like we actually, after slogging through all of the shit, almost being bankrupt, having to let everybody off on the team, like we fucking pulled that shit off, right?
Yeah.
At the last hour, like when we thought we were done.
Yeah.
And then awkwardly we saw him in the street, like he walks out, he's trying to get his Uber, we're trying to get our Uber. And like, I still don't have anything really to say to him. We're just like looking at each other like, we just met. We're like, oh, what are you doing? Where's my the Ubers took like hours to get there. I swear that was like the one time. But again, it was slogging it out. It was like that last minute thing, man. And that fucking feeling, you cannot get it anywhere, right?
All right, so once you actually get investors to believe in you, it's a big responsibility. But even bigger responsibility is the fact that when you start building your team, their livelihood is really relying on you as that leader. So we're gonna get into how Julian really understood what it was like to step up as a leader, as a CEO, as a real founder of a company. When that money hit your bank account, and it was, what did that feel like, and what was next for you? When did that leader in you say, you're a CEO of a company?
Yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Sure.
$1 million from somebody who believes in you.
Right.
What changed with you and your mindset at that point?
So it still took a while, right? Like, I mean, I'm always learning. I'm always trying to grow. I still need to learn.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah,
everything, it's every day.
It's every day.
And of course, there were $10,000 checks before then, right?
Yeah.
So there were, right? So that was like the big first one.
Yeah.
But I think what turned on right then and there was the fact that I started looking at my team and realizing that they depended on me and this business for their livelihoods. They depended on me and this team for, you know, the leaders and the businesses that they were going to make after Tablelist, right? Like, and it was in that very moment where I realized that this was bigger than me.
One thing that entrepreneurs need to learn how to master is networking,
Sure.
right? Like, and how to actually build relationships, you know, because that's how you'll genuinely get, you know, those warm introductions and build, just nurture those relationships so that they'll see your growth and kind of plant a seed with these investors so that when the time is right to strike, they already kind of know that you're a good leader and that you have a great brand and company, right?
Sure.
So how important has networking been for you?
I mean, it's critical, man. Like I said, like my parents came from nothing. I didn't have any tech background, right? Like I didn't have any VC friends when I started this whole thing out. And it's really important to just remember that you got to work with what you have, right? And it's that one person that maybe has like a faint relationship with this other person, right? But you got to like pry and dig and figure out like, you know, who do people know, right? And then what are those different connections that could potentially get you to the next level, right? And so when we started this thing, and I jumped the gun to get to the whole like, you know, big $1 million fundraise, but when I first started this thing, I was going back to my real estate investors, right? And I was talking to them, and every single day I'd be like, is there anybody that you can introduce me to, right? Like, who's that one other person that you think will be a fit? And for the most part, dude, everybody is willing to open up their Rolodex, right? Like, there's a few people that try to hoard them, right? And I've always been, you know, a believer in just open your books and it'll always come back in some sort of a form and a fashion. Right. So never be afraid to ask, right? Like, do you know any of these people? Do you know any people in this industry, right? And you'd be surprised. Like, you'd be surprised in the network of people that you have and the network of acquaintances that you have, like how close you are to some really, really, really powerful, incredible people that can change your entire business and change your entire life, right?
As long as you're all in, right? Like what you're selling and what you're...
Shameless, dude. You just gotta be shameless. That's it, right? No fear. Just go up to everybody. And I still have fear about stuff, dude. I still get nervous about things, right?
Of course.
But you just gotta push through it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you guys for watching this episode of LCL. If there's one thing that we ended and learned from Julian, okay, first and foremost, you gotta go all in. And even when everything is counting against you, realize that it's about you and about what you put into it, and you have to be crazy enough to continue to believe, even when it's down to that last day, that last minute.